Donald Trump is officially trying to distance himself from Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation's far-right blueprint for a possible second Trump term. Trump claimed to know nothing about the group's plan and criticized that plan, he knows nothing about. This sudden distancing comes just days after the president of the Heritage Foundation said this in the wake of the Supreme Court's immunity ruling.
The left has taken over our institutions. The reason that they are apoplectic right now, the reason that so many anchors on MSNBC, for example, are losing their minds daily is because our side is winning. And so I come full circle in this response and just want to encourage you with some substance that we are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
Frank Figliuzzi and Jill Wine-Banks are back with us. Simone, Mariah carried them, right? I don't know her.
I don't know her. It's like, who is she? What? I've never met her before. Also, was Kevin Roberts talking about us when he said
Maybe.
The MSNBC anchors? Was he talking about us? I don't know. He's welcome back anytime to explain this debacle. I want to play for you all Taraji P. Henson at the BET Awards. And after I play her, you're going to understand why.
Time for us to play chess, not checkers. It's about making decisions that will affect us as human beings. Look it up. They are attacking our most vulnerable citizens. The Project 2025 plan is not a game. Look it up.
Taraji P. Henson hosted the BET Awards this year, and Frank, I was struck by this moment because I don't believe it was scripted in there. But Project 2025 is going beyond the political group chats, if you will. So much so that Donald Trump has moved to disavow it, even though Kevin Roberts of the Heritage Foundation says he regularly speaks with Donald Trump about it, and it is all about infusing Trumpism. Talk just about well, first of all, I think Donald Trump is lying. We don't know for sure, but he has been prone to not tell the truth about conversations he has had and what he does and doesn't know. But this plan, it is not hyperbole, right? People should take it seriously because it can be implemented. There's all this talk that, oh, people are being hysterical, but this plan could potentially be implemented if an administration wanted to do so.
I'm so glad Project 2025 is getting more popular attention because it needs to. It is essentially a plan against America and everything we know about the checks and balances in our government. I think Trump's taken a page here with Project 2025 from Putin's playbook, which is, Putin attacked and tried to interfere with our 2016 presidential election. And when the special counsel inquiry caught him red-handed, hey, these are your guys with this social media propaganda. We've caught them. We've indicted them. The use of private citizens and oligarchs to do the propaganda within our social media allowed Putin that arm's length distance to say, I don't know, they're private citizens. So here we go again. We have the Heritage Foundation saying, with Trump saying, I don't know anything about this, but just like I don't know who the Proud Boys are. Who are they? What do you want me to say about the Proud Boys? It's the same thing. So essentially, it's going to dismantle the checks and balances. What would that look like within, for example, my old agency, the FBI, DOJ? Now, instead of, yes, we know the president gets to appoint a new FBI director if he wants to. It's supposed to be a 10-year term, by the way, but guaranteed Trump will find a new one who's loyal to him. He'll find a new attorney general who's loyal to him. But Project 2025 goes a lot further than that. It says even down the ranks now, they're going to remove civil service protections, and you can now have presidential appointees right down the floors of headquarters of FBI headquarters and CIA headquarters. That means that the people who would rise up, report to an IG, say something's wrong, I'm a whistleblower, they'll be gone. They're gone. And so if you have prosecutors throughout the country who are loyal to Trump and get to choose and pick cases to open and close, you have an FBI director and several floors at headquarters who are loyal to Trump. You now replace the general counsel at FBI, which I'm sure he'll do. The one person who can say we're not doing this now is owned by Trump, and you have carte blanche to spy on and arrest anybody that the president wants to.
Just let that set there for a second, because that's the new reality, Jill, that's being shaped by the incoming administration as they claim and as they see it. You have Trump saying, I don't know anything about this. I have no idea. I've never heard of it. And yet we know that his own personnel from his prior administration are serving in leadership roles in this. Other members of his team are in leadership roles here. How should we, certainly in light of what Frank just said, how should the broader community really be looking at this? Because I think, that clip we played coming in, what Frank is saying, this is really what this race is boiling down to. We can sit and fixate on how old Joe Biden is and worry about that, while at the same time you have Trump and Heritage laying the foundation for a dismantling of our rights and the protections under the Constitution, and fundamentally reshaping how our government. We were just talking about what happened with the CIA and the FBI in the 1970s and how offensive that was to America. What Project 2025 wants to do is to make that an everyday occurrence throughout government.
That is true, and I think it's up to the media, to all of us, to start communicating everything that is in Project 2025, because Frank is right. It would abolish the civil service and make sure that everyone who works at the Department of Justice or any other agency was a loyalist to Donald Trump. Of course, it's ridiculous that he says he doesn't know about it. He clearly does. All you have to do is read who the authors of each chapter are. The author of the Department of Defense is his Secretary of Defense on January 6th, Chris Miller, who I had the opportunity to interview as part of iGen Politics podcast. And all you can say is, how could he have been the Secretary of Defense? Peter Navarro, who is in jail, wrote the part on trade. I testified before the Weaponization Committee next to Gene Hamilton, who is from the Heritage Foundation, or the America First Foundation, who wrote the chapter on the Department of Justice. And his proposals are completely the destruction of democracy. It gives the president the total power to tell who can be prosecuted and who can't be prosecuted, something that has long been the norm. You cannot do. So we would be in serious, serious trouble. There can be no weaponization committee anymore because it's completely legal to weaponize. So Joe Biden, how can you investigate him for weaponizing the Department of Justice? There's nothing illegal about it because of the Supreme Court. And then you wouldn't even need the Supreme Court, because Project 2025 says all of these things are what should be the government. That is something that if people knew, it would definitely drive their vote. And I think it's up to us to start summarizing each of the many chapters to let people know how bad it is.
Jill, to your point, I think we should just put up on the screen for people some of the former Trump officials who are linked to Project 2025. You've got Paul Dance. He is the Project 2025 director, former OPM chief of staff under Trump. Rick Dearborn, distinguished visiting fellow for Project 2025, deputy chief of staff for Trump. Russ Vought, 2025 contributor, former OMB director under Trump. He authored the OMB chapter. Look at the people on this screen. Gene Hamilton, he authors the Department of Justice chapter. He's a former Trump DOJ official. He's the current VP of America First Legal, which is that Stephen Miller group that has been challenging all of these things the Biden administration is doing. My bestie, King Cuccinelli, from the DHS. He authored the DHS chapter. He was a DHS official under Trump. Ben Carson, how you going to tell me Donald Trump don't know nothing about Project 2025 when he been out on campaign trail with Ben Carson? Who are they fooling? Just who?
They're not fooling anyone. I mean, it's just the thing that Donald Trump says and that his followers believe. They believe anything he says, even though none of us does. And it's one of those things where you can't have a discussion with a Trumper because they do not accept reality. They don't accept facts. And, in the old days, we used to have discussions about the meaning of facts, the policies that should come from them. We didn't debate facts. We all agreed on them. That's one of the more serious problems we have in America right now, is that facts are being ignored.
All right, Frank Figliuzzi, Jill Wine-Banks, thank you both so much for joining us.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.